And, the base 16 math, base 10 math is not the only mathematical protocol any more than the metric system is the only system of measures. It happens to be one that we adopted. There's no reason to think it doesn't last 1,000 years. It could last 10,000 years, right? And that's the part that people don't get. So when I say it's going up forever, I'm saying, well, will the technology get better? Obviously. Will adoption increase? Well, I guess you could say it gets pegged out. When adoption is 8 billion people, when everybody's adopted it, technology keeps advancing, inflation continues in whatever other currencies exist. And at some point, theoretically, if all the other weak currencies failed, right? You think we go from 130 currencies to 100 to 30 to 12 to 10 to maybe one day there's the dollar and the CNY and you're down to 2, and then maybe we decide to throw away the dollar and the CNY and we get enlightened and we just use Satoshis. Yeah. And you get the perfect Austrian economics hard money, perfect thing. Maybe. Doesn't matter to me if we do or we don't, but let's say we did. Well, then it goes up with the productivity of the civilization, right? Mm-hmm. Right. If the civilization is got 5% productivity growth and everybody's adopted the same money, then you've got 5% growth. And until that, you're going to have faster than the productivity growth because you're going to get these rips, these accelerations from technology and adoption and fiat inflation in the frame of reference, right? It's useful to see the frame of reference, right? Is your frame of reference the peso? Is it the bolivar? Is it the U.S. dollar? And in that frame of reference, then the price is going to adjust.
My brothers are going to join us here in a second to ask a couple of questions.
Sure.
But my last question for you on this topic is, when you think about MicroStrategy, we always talk about MicroStrategy, right? Because that's the company that you run. But a lot of people will forget you actually made a very large personal Bitcoin purchase as well. Do you think about a difference in the decision-making between a person optimizing for this as like a balance sheet strategy versus a corporation? Or do you see those as the exact same thing?
I think for a person, you just say, how much money do I want to store for the next decade or maybe hold for life? How much long duration property? If I said you got to invest something for the next 30 years and give it to your grandchildren, hold it in the family endowment, I would put that amount of money in Bitcoin, right? The rest of your money is an investment. You're betting on Apple versus Facebook, or it's a speculation. I want to speculate on Doge versus SHIB because it's fun, or I want to gamble on the outcome of the Super Bowl because I think I know and it's fun, okay? And I think that all personal money falls into those three categories. It's either an investment, it's a speculation, or it's an endowment of a savings account. For a business, that's different because some businesses are traders. If you're a trader, if you think you can out-trade someone else, you're a business. You better be thinking about it 60 hours a week. You better have proprietary computers and proprietary models and know the markets and the arbitrages. Then you could trade maybe. I mean, Citadel trades, Renaissance trades. I mean, other people trade. Goldman Sachs trades. So I think they can be traders. And then also, when you get into business, right, businesses have other options. Like maybe they can raise capital, they can issue equity, they can issue debt. They're publicly traded. I have an army of lawyers and accountants so that I can do that. You don't as a family. So businesses don't have the same financing capabilities. People don't have the same financing capabilities that businesses do. And then your business has strategic assets. If you're Fidelity and you have trillions of dollars of fixed income, you can build it into your bonds. If you're a bank, you can build it into the bank. If you have a mobile app, you can build it into the mobile app. If you build phones or devices, you can build it into the device. One thing I think with a business is clear is you just should be laser-like focused, and you should think that when the dust settles, I need to be the best in the world at what I do, right? Like, for example, it wouldn't be a good idea for me to go into business competing with Fidelity, right? They have 11 trillion in assets. I'm not going to launch a Bitcoin investment fund, right? I'm not. I mean, it's not for me. I'm not going to go in business against, Square or PayPal either, just because I think it's a good idea. So businesses need to be laser-like focused on competing and growing and in a creative fashion for their shareholders. And also businesses have shareholders to manage and shareholder relations. And so there's that phrase, if we want to go far, we need to go together. And so for a business, it's very important to have shareholder alignment. Mm-hmm. Would you rather have $10 billion of capital and get a 10% return, or no capital and get a 30% return? Right? So a business has to keep their capital aligned. And so a lot of times they'll do things that are either optimized for their shareholders or they're optimized for their other constituencies. And businesses have regulatory nexus, right? Like there's certain things that I can't do if I'm a bank in China, right? Mm-hmm. Or if I'm a bank in the US, I can't. So businesses have compliance issues and individuals don't. So that's how I think about that.
You don't know this, but my two brothers run the Best Business Show research team, which is a very clever thing that they came up with. They also run a union that I've busted like 20 times. What questions do you guys have for
hopefully
Mike?
By the end of this, we're going to get Michael to join the union. This will be our recruiting
Bitcoin's
pitch.
a monetary union.
See, he's in.
It's a monetary union you should join. Eventually, everybody else will.
We're convinced.
What questions do you guys have?
So I listened to the entire interview. Fantastic, awesome stuff. But I have to ask one question around volatility. So
Right.
You mentioned earlier MicroStrategy owns or holds over 100,000 Bitcoin. I think you've mentioned in the past how much you personally hold. But there's days where Bitcoin has obviously appreciated drastically over the last year, 10 years, et cetera. But Bitcoin also went from 65,000 call to 30,000 or 32,000 this year. What's going on days where you're looking on paper and it's going, hundreds of millions of dollars at some points down?
Look, I'm running the business just like any CEO is running the business. Like if you were to ask Jeff Bezos, what are you thinking about on days when Amazon stock is down? He would say, I'm not thinking about it. I'm thinking about fix the business, run the business, and the stock will take care of itself. And that's what I think. I'm looking out 7 years, right? I'm saying, how do we educate more people on Bitcoin? What's my next deal that I'm going to do? I mean, if my stock is down, I'm going to issue debt. If my stock is up, maybe I can do a convert, right? What about the software business? How are we going to deliver the best quarterly results we can deliver? You focus on the things you can control. So if I can control it, I'm going to do it. And the short-term volatility, you can't control. And so you just wait. You got to figure that in 7 years, the market will sort itself out. In 7 months, it likely will sort itself out. If you want to drive yourself insane, then you zoom in. And if I zoom in close enough, if I just look at 0.0001% of your face for 18 milliseconds, I bet I can find some protozoa bacteria crawling around somewhere and it'll freak me out, right? If I want to, right? Like you're driving yourself to apoplectic fits by inducing this anxiety. So the way I look at volatility is, actually, the truth is I just say this. It's a benefit. Volatility is the price you pay to get 10x the performance of the S&P. If it wasn't volatile, then would I have been able to borrow $2.2 billion at 1% interest and buy $7.5 billion worth of it, starting with $250 million in capital? Like, I like the fact it's hard. I like the fact it's scary. I like the fact it's volatile. What you really want, this is what you should hope for in life. You should hope that you can see the future and you have a very strong opinion about the future, but that everybody else disagrees with you and they're getting bounced around. It's a bumpy ride. It's like, I'm taking you on a bumpy ride down the road. I'm going to bounce you this way and that way. And in 5 years, then there's a pot of gold at the end. And there's only 2 seats. And there's 10 people. And only 2 of you can get on. So the 2 of you guys, you're like, oh, there's pot of gold at the end? Sorry, pot of Bitcoin at the end? Pot of Bitcoin at the end. Yeah, you're like, okay, well, we'll sign up for the bumpy ride. What else do we got to do? And everybody else is like, fat, dumb, and happy, and they've all got plenty of everything, and they're comfortable in their life, and they're like, well, that doesn't look like a very comfortable ride. It's like, a Jeep, and it's a desert, and it's a bumpy ride. We'll sit this one out. Can you just bring it to us? And it's, what I said tongue-in-cheek about the FDIC statement. It's like, when every bank can hold Bitcoin on their balance sheet, well, then every company is going to borrow hundreds of billions and trillions of dollars against their Bitcoin. Every bank's going to buy trillions of dollars of Bitcoin. The price is going to the moon. You're not going to be able to afford the Bitcoin. When I make it, a smooth passage, you're going to wait until there's a train or a plane that flies across the country, or you're going to get in a wagon and you're going to go west, young man, right? So I'm like, the joke, of course, is it's volatility, but it keeps going up. People are like, well, up with volatility. So I think it's a benefit, because it's volatility that pays off everybody that does the research and has any conviction. And it disproportionately benefits people that want to make the investment in the new world, and it transfers wealth away from people that are afraid of volatility. It's not really afraid of volatility. Amazon was volatile, right? A lot of people made a lot of money on Amazon. A lot of people made a lot of money, even venture capitalists, accept extreme amounts of volatility. I think here you have an example of a liquid publicly traded asset, which is volatile, but in fact, it's still misunderstood by 98% of the public investors. So it's an asymmetric opportunity to buy something which is no less risky than investing in a big tech company, but much less understood. And I think probably the Sharpe ratios would actually bear that out. Correct. If we looked at volatility adjusted yield.
John, what questions you got?
Yeah, nice to see you again, Michael. So you have mentioned, and I tend to agree, that Bitcoin is digital gold and it's a store of value. I'm curious what your thinking is behind people, companies, and other countries using it as a medium of exchange. We've seen El Salvador adopt it. What are your thoughts around that?
I really think that for the next decade, the screaming home run architecture is digital currency as the US dollar on top of digital asset as BTC. And I think that every country really wants to move dollars around as the medium of exchange, because 100 million companies have their accounting systems wired for dollars. And I think they want to use the store of value. And I think if you had $100 and $99 are invested in Bitcoin and $1 is invested in the USD, you have 99% of the benefit. In fact, it's not even that. It's like, you don't have to give up anything. If you have $1 million, you put $1 million into Bitcoin and you borrow $100,000 in USD, a stable coin, and then you pay your bill in the USD while the Bitcoin appreciates. So the net balance sheet ratio is 100% Bitcoin, but it doesn't make the currency go away, right? Like MicroStrategy's got more than 100% of its balance sheet in Bitcoin, but we still use the currency. So what I think will happen, if you really want Bitcoin adoption to take off, you don't want to squeeze out the stable coins. I think that the USD stablecoin is actually going to drive the explosion in Bitcoin. The use case of stablecoins up until now has been crypto exchanges settling offshore, right? They're settling crypto exchanges. We didn't use stablecoins at MicroStrategy for anything. We don't use stablecoins to buy Bitcoin, right? So what you want is you want 8 billion people to use a stablecoin to buy coffee. And you also want Amazon and General Electric and Apple to remit cross-border treasuries in stablecoin. And why would you do that? Because you can move money at the speed of light on Saturday afternoon for free. And right now, MicroStrategy can't move money cross borders at the speed of light for free. Would we move USD by a stablecoin? Yeah. Would we move Bitcoin? Well, we might flash it into Bitcoin for a second, move it in another second, flash it back into USD, right? A la,
Strike.
Strike and Jack Mallers. We might do that. But I actually think that what the world wants, not just the world, every consumer in South America, Africa would love to have dollars in their wallet. They would also love, they know that now. Everybody knows that now. That's 100%, right? Everybody knows they want dollars in their wallet now. So the US dollar could spread to 6 billion people. It would spread to 8 billion people if the Chinese didn't block it, right? It'll spread to all 8 billion people. Now, they don't all know they want to hold their life savings in Bitcoin, but that's growing at a massive rate. That's spreading like a virus. Every government knows they want to control their currency. The strong governments will. The US will. The Chinese will. The EU will. The weak governments won't, right? Afghanistan, and Venezuela and places with hyperinflation, Zimbabwe, they will lose their currency privileges because they're weak. And who will they lose them to? To the dollar, right? So what I think is happening is you're just going to see an explosion in the dollar, an explosion in Bitcoin, an explosion in demand for money moving over lightning rails. If you could move stablecoin over lightning rails, that would accelerate the growth of lightning, right? The killer application I want on my phone is a lightning wallet with USD stablecoin and then Bitcoin, and to be able to move either of them at the speed of light in a programmatic fashion. And I think they both win. Who loses? And this is the key. There's too much. The dollar must lose so Bitcoin can win. No. Who loses is weak assets and weak currencies. Can you think of a weaker asset than Bitcoin? Every other investment asset, right? Especially gold, silver, commodities, land, weak value stocks, and big tech stocks. They're all weaker assets. So you see money flow there's 500 trillion of them, by the way, right? We have 500 trillion in weak assets. If you got the 10 trillion from gold, we'd be up by a factor of 10. So I think that weak assets flow to the strong asset, and then weak currencies. How many currencies in the world are weaker than the dollar? Name one currency, fiat currency in the world, stronger than the dollar. None. They're all weaker. CNY is weaker. Every African currency, every Asian currency, everything. So 180 nominal currencies, a lot of them are pegged to the dollar, 130 floating currencies. They all can be replaced with the dollar. So who wins? Western banks, Western technology companies, Western hardware devices, the Western world, the United States, Western Europe. Who wins? Everybody that embraces Bitcoin, right? Who loses? The nation of gold, right? I mean, you want to declare war on something? Declare a war on gold. They don't have an army. They don't have an air force. There's no politicians running for office of president of gold. There's no city, state, country. No one is crying thinking that their way of life will come to an end if gold got demonetized. So if I had one request from the Bitcoin community, my request would be focus your guns on gold. Ultimately, gold is being demonetized. This is not speculation on the part of Michael Saylor. You have all the stats. It's been demonetized for the past decade, right? It doesn't have a country. It doesn't have an army. It doesn't collect taxes. There's not a single person on earth that is going to lie down in front of a tank to defend the nation of gold. And yet gold is the enemy, because gold is a dumb rock sitting. You can't mortgage your gold. You can't lean up your gold. It's hard to rent your gold or license it or develop it further. Gold is not big tech. You can't put gold on an iPhone. So ultimately, what you have is there are two things that should succeed and grow. The US dollar, if you live in the United States and you believe in Western values and freedom and justice, right, and Western law and the progressive movement, You want the U.S. dollar to grow, and instead of saying, well, the dollar is like a problem to save in, forget about that. Just point out that if you live in Africa and Asia, you would give your left arm to trade in dollars, right? So the dollar should expand on lightning rails, and Bitcoin should expand, and they go together, and we all win. We all win, right? The world's a better place. Every company, everybody wins. If you're going to compete, by the way, if you're going to compete with Square Cash App, then you might lose. If you're going to compete with Twitter, you might lose. If you're going to compete with the United States of America, you might lose. My advice is, you don't got to destroy the banks. You don't have to topple a government. You don't have to crush a currency. You don't have to stop a regulator. You don't have to, eliminate PayPal, right? You don't have to compete with all of them. You can buy Bitcoin. You want to compete with something, declare war on a dead rock, right? Declare a war on the rock, right?
The rock has been losing for a while now.
And after you finish declaring war on the rock, declare war on dead property, right? Dead money, right? What are low velocity, I don't want to hold 500 acres in the middle of nowhere as a store of value. I don't want to hold 5 tons of rock as a store of value. I don't want to monetize these things. So if you start thinking that way and you think, I just want to take my monetary energy, put it into digital energy, and then I want to partner and ally with everything I find admirable, every great company, every great politician, every great country, right? Every great technology. Just be positive, be constructive, and we all go and we win together. The world will rebuild itself, right? It's going to rebuild itself. I would prefer that it rebuild itself in a peaceful, constructive, cheerful fashion, as opposed to, someone's got to lose so I could win. I think everybody can win, right? If we invent electricity and we invent math and we invent fire, isn't it highly likely the entire human race is better off because of math, fire, and electricity? Right? I think, right? We can all win together, and so that's the way I see that.
Before we finish up, we've been going for 2 hours, but I know you and I could talk about this all day. If I just give you the floor to finish, when somebody says to you, why Bitcoin? What's your 2, 3, 4 sentence answer as to why has Michael Saylor, who had every option in the world to buy an asset and put it on your balance sheet or personally invest in, why Bitcoin?
Because I'd start by saying the human condition is elevated via the channeling of energy, and every great advance was a new form of energy, be it metallic energy in the form of steel or electrical energy or chemical energy. And Bitcoin is the next evolution of that, right? So the first reason is it's compelling and critical to the advance of the human race. The second observation is every successful investment idea in the 21st century was a digital transformation of music, digital transformation of entertainment, digital transformation of books, digital communications. Bitcoin's the digital transformation of everything else. Everything that didn't get transformed in the first chapter of the mobile wave comes next. So now we have digital transformation of gold, digital transformation of property, and digital transformation of energy. And for the first time in the history of the human race, you can literally take energy, transform it into something in cyberspace, store it forever, move it at the speed of light, program it, and eliminate the friction that is applied to that energy when it takes another form. Economically, energy is capital, right? We use the phrase capital. If you have digital capital, it's the digital transformation of capital, and capital is half of everything. If you sum up every piece of property, every corporation, the value of everything, it's all capital. You capitalized it. So if I capitalized everything and I stored it in 20th century instruments, I would store them in equity securities and bonds and titles to property. In the 21st century, I have the chance to capitalize the entire world economy and put it in a digital token we call Bitcoin. So why buy it? Because it's half of everything. It's literally half of everything, and it is the platform. It's the foundation upon which we build the 21st century economy. You could say 21st century cyber economy, but if you want to fix everything in the world, if I could eliminate the friction, move everything at the speed of light, make it immortal, oscillate it at 60 megahertz or faster, execute 1 million transactions a second and make it infinitely intelligent, wouldn't you think that that would be a good idea? Right? It's the future of capitalism.
There's not very many people who believe in this more than I do, but you may be one of them, because I think you and I see eye to eye on all of this. So I appreciate you taking the time to come in here. I appreciate you two sitting around and watching this entire thing, coming and asking some questions. They'll be taking virtual laps for weeks now because you even hinted at the fact that you may be open to joining their union. I appreciate everyone watching at home. Please make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel. Thank you to SoFi for sponsoring the Best Business Show. And we have lots and lots to go over after this conversation, but we'll be back tomorrow. And I think that's it. Go follow Michael on Twitter. I don't know if we've got anything else. I don't know if you
Thanks
need
for
any
having
more,
me.
I don't know if you need any more Twitter followers, but
I got one more question.
oh,
What?
Jesus.
Go ahead.
We talk about
Don't ask me what the price is going to be.
no, I won't ask you. No.
Tired of that question.
No, we talk about Bitcoin being good for business all the
Yeah.
time, and I think part of that is obviously the price has appreciated. So anyone who has been involved has benefited from that. But part of it is also just the community aspect of it, right? And how powerful that is. Is there a specific point in time where you were like, "Holy crap! Like this is wild. These people are really strong. They're really passionate."
I think that every single month that's gone by, I've just been more impressed with the community ethos. If you look at our press release, when we first bought Bitcoin and we said why we bought it, one of the lines we put in the press release is we're persuaded by the community ethos, by the community itself, that this is digital gold and it's harder and it's smarter and it's stronger and it's faster than gold. And I think that came out of all my research before we actually made that announcement. And the way you figure out the community's passionate is you do your research and you study all the influencers, you look at all the podcasts and you read all the books. And you couldn't come to any conclusion other than the asset is differentiated based on the community ethos. I even tweeted this. I made this point, and I guess I'll elaborate right now. I said, the character of the asset determines the character of the owners determines the destiny of the asset, right? The character of the people that own something. If you own like Joe Random Yo-Yo coin and you're owning it to flip it on Saturday night, depending upon which way a football game goes, okay, that's the destiny of the asset, right? It's going to be short term because the people are short term. Whenever you buy anything, you got to ask yourself the question: what's the character and what's the intent and what's the strategy or the belief system of the people that are buying the thing that I'm buying? If I buy real estate in New York, right, you'll eventually sell it to someone else who swears that New York is the apex city. People that love New York, their opinion is there is no other city on earth where you could go. Everything is a step down. They have a view of New York as Mount Everest, and they're living at the top of it. And everything, if you were to say, have you ever considered moving to another city? They recoil in horror. Kind of like New York is like the Rome of 100 AD, and there's Rome, and then there's barbarians. Okay, so that's the character of the asset owner. What's the character of people that own Bitcoin? If you have if everybody bought it because they intend to hold it forever, isn't that the kind of asset you want? Or if I told you people bought it because they liked the monogram, they own that dog. Well, how many dog coins are there? 48 or something? Well, if you bought the 47th dog coin, then the 49th dog coin is eventually going to demonetize you. So I think that's been very clear from the beginning. Bitcoin had the immaculate conception, right? I mean, you can't recreate this again. How do you have an open sourced, asset that was never pre-mined, that was never ICO'd, that no one thought would be that until it became that, right? So I think that my conviction grows with time, but it's pretty evident in August.
All right. So what's your no? I'm just kidding.
Do you have a price prediction?
It's going up forever.
All right. Listen, I appreciate everyone coming. I thank you very much, Michael.
Yeah.
You've got a whole bunch of stuff you guys are spending your time on, so I appreciate you coming here, hanging out with us. And anyone who's got any questions, go tweet at Michael. He probably will not respond, but he'll at least read it. So see you guys tomorrow.
Have a good one. Thank you.